Yes, today we are going to discuss experiment number 6, design and validation of motor direction controls. So for that we are going to use L293 HBRIS driver module. So this is our driver module. This is our DC motor. Okay, so in this DC motor we have a positive negative terminal, and we have few terminal connections over the driver board. So before that we will discuss with the help of the circuit diagram. So this is our circuit diagram. It is an 16 pin IC. Using this IC you can make two DC motor to control, but in our exercise we are going to control only one DC motor direction control. So for that we are going to focus on these terminals, pin number IC pin number 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8. This is the one side of the motor control. Similarly you have another side, that is for the second DC motor. If we want, we can connect one more DC motor across these two terminal and we can control. Okay, yes, before that, what are all the terminals available here is the first terminal. This first pin terminal is the enable pin for this side, left hand side motor direction control. Okay, then you have a pin number 2. We need to connect it in the in between 1K resistor and the push button switch in between the middle terminal. Similarly, pin number 7, we need to connect it in the another switch S2 and one more resistor. Okay, then the terminal 3 and 6, we need to connect our DC motor across the terminal 3 and 6. Then 4 and 5 we need to make it into ground. Okay, so if you want to see the detailed pin diagram of L293, here this is the pin diagram of L293 IC. So here you have enable pin, the pin number 1, this is the enable pin. Then you have a 1A and 2A. So the 1A and 2A terminal are the control inputs via we are going to give a command to make our motor to rotate. Then 1Y and 2Y are the terminal across we are going to connect our DC motor. Then remaining these two terminals are heatsink ground pins. Usually we will connect it in the ground. Okay, now we will see how the actual connection is made over here. See here in this driver board you have few terminals. As we discussed earlier, the one side is for this motor control, the another side is for the second motor control. If we want, we can add the motor over here. Okay, so here you can find VCC ground pin. Here we are going to give the input DC supply from our regulator supply unit. We are going to give a input supply across these two terminal named as 12 volt and ground. So 12 volt pin is meant for positive terminal, the ground is meant for negative. Then what we need to do, the second, we need to connect our motor across the terminal 3 and 6. The 3 and 6 terminals are here named as M1 and M2. The positive terminal of the DC motor is connected to the M1 terminal. The negative terminal of the DC motor is connected to the M2 terminal. See here, M1 we have connected positive terminal, M2 we have connected negative terminal. So what are the connections we have finished? The input VCC and the ground we have connected. Then we have connected the DC motor in the terminal 3 and 6. What are the remaining two connections left over here? That is your terminal number 2 and 7. Then you have an enable connection. Usually the enable connection we need to keep it in the VCC. Enable we need to connect it in the VCC. So where is the enable pin? See here, you will find 8 set of connectors over here. 8 set of connectors over here. Out of 8, these 4 pins for this motor control, first motor control, remaining 4 pins for the second motor control. So what are all the pin numbers listed over here? Please observe, this is the 5 volt. Once you give the DC supply into these two terminal, you will get the 5 volt out from this terminal. Okay, then you have a enable pin, then in 1 and in 2. What are all the in 1 and in 2 pins? The in 1 and in 2 pins are marked here it as a 2 and 7. So if you want, we can mark it as a in 1 and in 2. Okay, so the in 1 and in 2. Okay, then this enable pin. So the enable pin, we are going to, this enable pin, we are going to connect it the logic high. First we will see how we will connect that one. Okay, see here we have two push buttons and one resistor as shown in the diagram. We need to connect it in series, and one end we need to connect it in the VCC, the other end we need to connect it in the ground. Then from the middle terminal we need to connect it to the one branch to the in 1 terminal, the second branch to the in 2 terminal. Okay, see here, so here we have connected one resistor in series with this push button, so here you have 4 legs. So I am going to connect the push button between the upper and lower portion of the breadboard, thereby the one end, the first end I am going to connect the VCC. The other end of the resistor is connected to the one end of the push button. Then the second terminal of the push button is connected to the ground. The ground we have taken from the regulated power supply. From the regulated power supply we have connected to the ground. Those same setup here. The second resistor connected from the VCC. The other end of the resistor is connected to the push button. Then the other end of the push button is connected to the ground. So in that way we have finished these two setups. Now what we need to do? We need to connect the enable pin to the VCC. Then we need to connect the in 1 terminal in the one of the terminal. Then into the second terminal. So see here, where is the enable pin? Here is the enable pin. The second terminal is the enable pin. We have connected with the black wire. So now I am going to connect the enable pin with the 5 volt. Okay, then in 1 and in 2, these two terminals we have to connect it in the between this resistance and push button series. So in 1 is the white in color, so I am going to connect it over here. In 1 I am going to connect it here, then in 2 I am going to connect it here. So that's all the connections we made as per the circuit diagram. Now what we need to do, we need to apply the input voltage and we need to check the direction of the motor. Okay, so how we are going to check it? So using this truth table, we are going to check the motor direction control. Okay, so first of all, here you have a in 1 terminal and in 2 terminal. So that is in 1 terminal is connected with the S1 switch, in 2 is connected with the S2. If we are applying logic 0 in both the inputs, your motor will be in off condition. And if you make the in 2 input into a logic high and in 1 into logic 0, your motor will rotate in clockwise direction. And it is vice versa. If you keep this is 1, this is 0, your motor will rotate in anti-clockwise direction. And if you give both the inputs at logic high, your motor remains in off condition. Okay, now we will check it here. I am going to turn on the regulated power supply and we are going to keep the input voltage as 4.5 volt. Roughly I am going to keep 4.5 volt. I am going to keep it as the input voltage. Okay, then now our both the push buttons are in released condition. Here both the push buttons are in released condition. So thereby we will get logic high. We will get logic high in both the inputs. Thereby my motor is in off condition. Now what we are going to do? We are going to press. Yes. Now what we are going to do? We are going to press S1 button. Thereby we will apply logic 0 in one terminal. Thereby our motor will start rotating in the clockwise direction. Now we will check the same. Now I am going to press the S1 button. S1 button. The moment I press, you can observe our motor starts rotating clockwise direction. Okay. So what is the next logic we need to observe? If I press the S2 button, it will rotate in anti-clockwise direction. Please observe. Now I am going to press the S2 button. It starts rotates in the anti-clockwise direction. So if we press both the button, your motor remains in off condition. So in this way you can achieve the DC motor direction control using L293 driver IC. Thank you.